morning, and thank you for joining me on this sunny Saturday morning in Carolina Beach. I'm Tom Elicson, and I'm running to be your next mayor of Carolina Beach, and this is my weekly Facebook Live, Saturday morning Facebook Live event. And this week, we're broadcasting live from the Carolina Beach Marina, and the reason we're doing that is because this town is planning to start a $3 million revitalization project of the south side where we're standing now and the east side of the marina. And if all goes according to plan, it could start up this winter, over the winter. And so I wanted to talk to everyone about that today, this morning, and also talk to everyone about what I feel the changes are that we need to make in terms of oversight and management of these large projects to make sure that they get completed successfully the first time. And I think we'll talk about projects we've done in the past that haven't gone so well and the lessons learned from that, which we really have to apply to this new project going forward. It's very critical. This new project, this $3 million project, is much larger, or is larger than the $2.4 million lake dredging project, and it's on a much tighter time frame. So it's very important that we make these changes to the way we go about handling these projects. And I'll talk to you about that as well. But there was a meeting, a council workshop this past Tuesday where they presented the latest information about the revitalization project. So I'm going to go over some of that information with you, and then we'll talk about what changes I think should be made. And so for those of you who are just joining, this is my weekly Facebook Live event, and this is my third one. And so, last week we broadcast from just across the street at the Seawitch parking lot, and it was at the beginning of the Dragon Boat Regatta, which was actually held right here in the marina area. And last week we talked about parking issues on the island, and how parking is getting very tight, and what I felt the fundamental problem was that we just didn't have enough parking spaces. And so what I proposed last week was that we form an ad hoc committee to study parking issues, project our parking needs for the next 10 years, and propose solutions to council. And I think that's an example of one project we can get out in front of, be proactive on, and address our parking needs for the next 10 years. 2 weeks ago was my first Facebook Live event. I just introduced myself and talked about how we came to Carolina Beach by way of Hudson, Ohio, and how I had served on council in Hudson, Ohio, and where we worked on several and provided oversight on several large infrastructure projects. I talked about my 30 years of engineering experience, where right now I currently manage and provide oversight on large projects as well. So I understand what it takes for elected officials to provide oversight on large projects, large public projects. So that's very important. And I also know, from the private side, what best practices we use when we manage projects. So I'd like to bring that perspective to council. And that perspective, that's a change we need to make, and that's one of the things we'll talk about today. So to get started, let's just talk about the marina project. I refer to it as the Carolina Beach Marina. That's what the land use plan calls it, but it has many other names. It goes by yacht basin, boat basin, a harbor. There's a harbor management plan that was drafted or updated in 2008 that talks about this whole basin area from Snowscut all the way down to the south end here, this bulkhead, and it refers to the whole area as the Carolina Beach Yacht Basin. So I'll refer to this either as the Yacht Basin or the Marina. And we are standing on the south side of the Yacht Basin, and around back of us is this little park area along Carl Winter Drive. And when this revitalization project starts up, it will be working on, there will be work performed on the south side of the marina and on the east side of the marina. We'll go around to the east side in a little bit. And the revitalization will perform repairs to damage caused by Hurricane Florence. It It'll perform just the long needed repairs on the bulkhead itself, and it'll upgrade some of the boat slips, and it will install a brand new timber walkway according to the current construction plans. But during construction, a lot of this area will be affected for several months, probably for the at least one entire summer season. So this whole park area here on the current construction maps is designated to be a staging area. So it'll be fenced off. Construction equipment will be laid out here. There could be construction traffic coming in and out. So Carl Winter Drive will still be open, but it will be could be impacted by construction traffic. And so that staging area will be there, I think, for the duration of the project. And the duration of the project, the plan that has been laid out is that it could take, the project will first of all be broken up into two basic parts. There'll be one project or one part to revitalize the south side of the marina, and a second part to revitalize this east side. And the east side is here behind me along Canal Road. And each project will require, according to the schedule, they expect about 3 months to get the permitting in place, and about another 2 months to go out for bids, to get final designs done, and to get a contract in place. And then each construction project, the actual construction is expected to take about 6 months. So you can see it's a very long time frame. And this whole area will be impacted during the construction. And so, for instance, when this east side construction is going on, this intersection here of Canal and Carl Winter Drive will be blocked off. And there may be limited access. It's difficult to tell from the construction drawings if it will be, but this will all be a construction zone, and so there will either be no access or limited one-way access onto Canal Drive. And so the Scotchman behind us would be affected. The owners of the commercial boat owners will be affected. When the construction is going on, their boats will have to be moved from their boat slips on the east side over to the west side. The homeowners in the apartments and condos up the way will be affected. They'll have limited access. Our favorite island taco joint, Nolly's Tacos, which is just up Pelican, that will also be affected. Pelican, according to the construction maps, will have a barricade placed on it to prevent access from between Canal Drive and Pelican. And so those businesses will be affected. And of course, Stoked will be affected as well. Although the construction zone is designated to stop before we get to Stoked, it will still be affected. So traffic will have to be rerouted up Dolphin to Carolina Beach Avenue North to get around this construction area. And so because of the large number of businesses that are being affected, the town ideally would want this east side construction to take place over the winter months rather than the busy summer months. And so when you look at the time frame of the 3 months for permitting and the months required for contract award and the 6 months of construction, you can see that we're on a very tight timeline. And so if there's any complications that come up or any project delays that come up, even if we have plans to start at the beginning of the winter, things could very easily extend into the summer months, and that's what we, as a town, I think we would want to avoid. So how do we do that? So what should we do? I think if we apply lessons learned from past projects to this current project, I think we have a better chance of the project being completed successfully and progressing smoothly. And that's my background. That's what I'll bring to council. I do have a background in project management, and like I said, I've been on a council before, so I know what kind of oversight elected officials need to give towards public projects.
You need to get the sun out of your face.
And so I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over some of these best practices, some of the changes I think we need to make. And I'd like to, at the Carolina Beach Lake Dredging Project, because I do believe that if these practices were in place 3 years ago, we would have been able to successfully complete the lake dredging project, and we wouldn't be talking about it today. But it's very important, if we don't apply any lessons learned from the lake dredging project and go ahead with this even larger project on an even tighter timeline, we're putting ourselves at risk again for having complications that are completely avoidable. And so that's very important. So the first thing, anytime we do a large project in the private side that I'm familiar with, we always have what we call it, it can go by different names, but we call it a pre-job brief. And so you get together, you get everyone in the room, and you start off by going over a detailed schedule. And a detailed schedule is not simply a few bullet points on a piece of paper that say, we're probably going to start in this month and we're going to finish in this month. It's a line-by-line, detailed schedule. Every line item has someone's name attached to it, so there's accountability. And every line has a start and a finish date on it. And so not only, in my experience, is it important to finish a task on time, but it's important to start it on time. And so that's something that's critical. And then you go around, and when people's names are assigned to a task, you have to ask them in this pre-job brief if they can meet that schedule, if that schedule is something they can meet. And you have to document it. And you also go around and you ask the people in the room, the contractor, and it's a team effort. We're all working towards the same goal, so it's not an adversarial relationship. We're all on the same team. And so there's tasks that the contractor has to do, there's tasks that the city has to do. And in doing those tasks, both sides have to meet the schedule, and there are project risks that both sides have to be aware of and discuss. And as an example, with the lake dredging project, this is kind of a timeline. I'm not sure how it's going to show up here. This is a timeline of the project when it was supposed to start. The contract was awarded in January of 2017, and the scheduled start date was at the end of March of 2017. But what happened? March 27, 2017, dredging was supposed to start, but it didn't. No dredging began, so basically the first major task, the start date of the first major task, was missed. So how does that happen? That would have been something that would have been addressed in a pre-job brief, because you're going over the schedule and you would ask the contractor, this is your start date, March 27th. Can you make that start date? And they would say yes or no. And the reason, as it turns out, this March 27th date was missed was that the contractor's equipment was out for maintenance. And so that would have come up in the pre-job brief as well. The contractor might have said, we can start on March 27th, but there's a risk some of our equipment might still be out for maintenance on that date. And so either way, you would know whether or not you would be able to start on March 27th and if there was a project risk. So that very first task, missing that first task, could have been avoided, I think, with a pre-job brief. The town could have made it more clear to the contractor. There was about a 2-month period between contract award and start of work. The town could have worked with the contractor to make sure that their equipment maintenance was done prior to the scheduled start of work. So that's a big thing. The other thing that I'm familiar with in the nuclear industry, when we do large projects, especially when we're moving on site, moving large loads around, is that we go and we do a site walk down where we actually put boots on the ground. So the engineers, the managers, the contractors, they're there walking the site down, just like we're walking the site down today, so we can see that the south side of the marina, we can see where Carl Winter Drive is and where the park is, and we can physically see the area that would have to be fenced off for a staging area. But you do a site walk down, and if you're moving a load, you can start in this instance of the example of the Carolina Beach Lake. You start with a walk down of the lake itself. And you can say, this is where the equipment will be staged, this is where we'll start the dredging, this is where the trucks will pick up the spoils and take them out. And you can move to the Matsu property and do a walk down there. So everyone from the Army to the contractor to the city to even the mayor or the council, if they want to sit in and observe, which I think is very important on these large projects during the walk downs of the pre-job brief. Everyone could have been on Matsu to understand exactly where the spoils should have been placed. And so there would have been no mistake about putting the spoils in the wrong location, even if it was only 50 or 60 feet away. You know, that mistake, that error caused the whole project to be shut down, and that was completely avoidable by doing, and it could have been avoided by doing this very common best practice of simply doing a site walk down prior to the start of work. And so I would like to see the same thing here. This is a very complicated project on the marina. They're going to be fencing off the park on the south side by Carl Winter Drive for a staging area. They're going to be putting up barricades to block sections of the road and road access. Canal Drive might be, this section of Canal Drive in the construction zone might either be completely blocked off or might be limited to one-way traffic.
We should get off this main road.
So it's very important to do that site walk before the start of work. So then the next thing, projects, weekly status meetings are very common. And it's the ones I'm familiar with during a weekly status meeting. And again, it's a formal process. You go over the schedule. You say, since the prior status meeting, what tasks have been completed? What tasks were scheduled to have been completed, and were they completed on time? And you can have a discussion about that. If they weren't completed on time, you know, why weren't they? What complications came up? Does the contractor need more support from the city or from the town? And again, this is a two-way street. There are tasks assigned to the contractor that have to be done on a certain, they have to start and finish on certain dates, and there are tasks that the town is responsible for. So both sides have to get certain things done on time. And then you do a 2-week look ahead. You say what tasks in the next 2 weeks looking forward will be starting up, and which ones will we be expected to be finished in the next 2 weeks. And again, you can ask the people responsible for those tasks, you have a task starting next week. Do you have everything you need to start that successfully on time? And you can talk about that, and again, you can talk about project risks. And the project risks, you talk about at all these weekly status meetings, but that is also something that you talk about in the pre-job brief. You know, the project risk, another project risk, when we look at this schedule, things that could have been avoided. Again, we were supposed to start on March 27th, which it didn't, at the dredging of the lake. But barely a month later, things were so far behind that the city had to write a letter, a notice of deficient performance to the contractor after only a month into the project. And that is a result, I believe, of two things. First of all, it's not understanding the project risks, which should have been addressed in the pre-job brief. And I think in this instance, from what I gather from the newspaper articles, is that the sediment at the bottom of the Carolina Beach Lake was much finer and much looser than had been anticipated, and so they had a very difficult time and maybe didn't have the right equipment there to do the dredging based on that silt. And that is something, you know, that could have come up in a pre-job brief. Is that you know, there's some uncertainty about the sediment in the bottom of the lake, and maybe something could have been done to address that. I know they did take soil samples, but if you take soil samples before that big project started and you're still uncertain about the condition of the soil in the lake, you know, maybe you need to go out and do a little bit more sampling before the project starts. So that was one thing that could have avoided this deficient performance after just 30 days on the job. And again, if you have weekly status meetings, you're getting updates on a week-to-week basis from the contractor, and you would know early on if they're going to meet their targets during that first month or not, and what complications they're facing. And so steps can be taken to be proactive, trying to address some of those complications. But so that's what happened. There was from March, they missed the start date. A month later, they were already behind schedule and received a letter of deficient performance from the city. And then the next month in May, they received a second notice of deficient performance. So that project was really, it seems like it was doomed from the outset for many reasons. And I think these best practices could have avoided a lot of that. And then finally in August, after the summer was done, you know, the spoils were being placed on the Matsu property in an area that was not agreed upon, and so that the project came to a stop. And again, that would have been something that would have been addressed very clearly during any kind of a pre-job site walk down. So everyone would have known exactly where all the spoils should have gone. And so what I see is when I use that as an example, and we apply these best practices that we've always used. These aren't things I just read out of a book or Googled. These are things I live. This is what I do on my job, and I see these things in action, and I see how they work. And when I apply these best practices to the lake dredging, it seems like all the problems we had could have been avoided. They were avoidable issues, and if we had these practices in place, it's very likely that the lake dredging would have proceeded without complication, and it would have been successfully completed by today. And so it's very important then moving forward with this next project to apply those same, to make changes and not approach the project the same way we approach the lake dredging project. And if I'm elected mayor, I will work with the town manager to compare notes with the way they do things now with the best practices we have in industry. I would like to implement, have the city or have the town implement new policies and procedures for project management that include things like a more formal pre-job brief, weekly status meetings, pre-job site walk down with boots on the ground with everyone, all the interested parties involved. And I know how to provide, again, an oversight. The town is responsible for managing the project, but the elected officials have to provide the proper oversight on the project to make sure that things are progressing per the plan. And so that's what else I will bring as the next mayor of Carolina Beach. I'll make sure I'm keeping an eye on the project, providing the proper oversight. So I think those are the big things I wanted to talk about. And again, it's just very important because of the tight timeline and the businesses that are going to be affected, that this project be able to progress on schedule, and especially on this east side of the revitalization. If it needs to take place over the winter and not extend into the summer months, we need to make sure that we really approach it properly and stick to the schedule and not let the schedule slip. So I think that's about all I have to say. I don't know if we quite made it to our half hour, but don't need to take up any more of your time than is necessary. But again, this is just my Saturday morning Facebook Live event. I will be holding these every Saturday morning from about 8:30 to 9. We'll start at 8:30, and if there's questions that come in during the event, I'll try to answer them during the event or afterwards. And we'll wrap up by 9 a.m. every Saturday morning. And each Saturday we'll talk about a different topic. And this morning's topic was the planned revitalization of the Carolina Beach Marina, a $3 million project that if all goes well, the town would like to start this winter. The revitalization will make needed repairs on this east side along Canal Drive and on the south side along Carl Winter Drive. And each project will require about 3 months of permitting, about 2 months of getting the contracts in place, and about 6 months of time to actually perform the construction. So it's going to be a long project. Will extend over the course of a winter and a summer season. And if we do it right, it won't extend across 2 summer seasons. Okay, we want to get it done, get in and out, and be done with it. And so I just want to thank everyone for joining me this morning. And I've talked to you about some of the changes I want to make. And if you agree that we need these kinds of changes to make sure we start getting our large infrastructure projects done successfully, getting them done right the first time, getting them done on time, on schedule and on budget. See, I have one visitor to my Facebook Live event. I think he has a question. I'm not sure.
Hi, Gator.
But if you agree with me that you would like to see some positive changes where we can implement some best practices, well, that's the perspective I bring. And that's what I will bring as the next mayor of Carolina Beach. And we can make these changes with your help if you vote for me during this election in November. So remember, please vote for me and elect Elicson this November. And thanks for joining in. And I will, I'll see you on Monday at the Marriott. There's the candidates forum at the Marriott this Monday, starting at 6:30. So I'll be there. I'll see many of you throughout the week, and I'll see you all again next Saturday at the next Facebook Live event. So enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.